Only 1 year after the original film came out, Toho already released a sequel. In fact, technically speaking, 1 year is being generous. It was 6 months. Godzilla Raids Again, or the version where what you say, Gigantus for Fire Monster, Don't Ask Questions, Toho fucking didn't. It's essentially what happens if you grab something amazing and throw it at the wall seeing what sticks. Not much sticks. It does need to be mentioned though, how important this film actually ended up being. It's not good. I'm really not gonna lie, it's not a good movie, it's pretty terrible. But Anguirus is awesome, and a lot of the influence that this film had, without it we wouldn't have the kaiju monster mash that we have nowadays. To anyone who's wondering, Gigantus the Fire Monster is essentially the American dubbed version. It adds a little, like 5 minutes extra footage, it cuts out about like 25 to 30 minutes, and it's really not good, but still important. So let's see what Toho can do in 6 months, and let's see what they also can't do in 6 months. I've seen a lot of fans online state that because the original Godzilla was meant to represent Hiroshima, this one's meant to represent Nagasaki. And if that's true, my god, how disrespectful to the people of Nagasaki. You could tell how quickly the movie was rushed. There's no plot to this. It's essentially set piece followed by set piece, something which very sadly will become kind of a staple of the Godzilla genre even to this day. Essentially, the first act revolves around Godzilla just kind of being alive again, and now he's punching like Anguirus in the face. You don't really know why, it's just kind of there. We meet 2 characters, they're useless, as I'll go into a little bit later on. And then a lot of the film literally revolves around them going, but how is Godzilla alive? And everyone just goes, I don't know, Toho wanted money. No joke, most of this film, like about half of it, is just Anguirus and Godzilla fighting. Nothing else. The other half is literally just the exact same plot as bits of the original, how do we stop Godzilla? There's no real substance here, and the themes of this film, being around nuclear warfare, are cut in half. I've heard a lot of people say that the Jaws sequels get half as good each time. That is literally what this movie is. It is half as good as the original Godzilla, and there's about half the context, characters, etc. of Godzilla. The last 30 minutes are literally just them stopping Godzilla. There's no other plot. As much as I hated with a passion the romantic subplot from the original, that would have actually made this one better, because there's just no substance. It's just them trying to trap Godzilla in ice, and it's boring as hell. The film also seems very unsure if it wants to be a sequel or its own film, especially the American version. As I said, I'm going through that version with this video. There's a part which is pretty good, where that doctor guy from the first one, like the mayor or whatever he was, appears, basically tells him this happened before, but he calls the original Godzilla Gigantus, even though he was called Godzilla. It seems very peculiar to me why they didn't just say, that version's Godzilla, this one's Gigantus, they're the same family. It's like they wanted America to forget Godzilla existed, which is weird since America spent so much money doing the English redo of the film, and it was released 1 year prior to this. It's very peculiar. There's also a few plot points which are an issue, where they say that Godzilla/Gigantus can never be defeated, but then there's an entire monologue about how they defeated one. It's lazy. If you think the original film is lazy with those kind of plot points, it has nothing on this sequel. It's very bad, and is kind of something you'd expect to see in something that like Asylum or the Sci-Fi Channel would release, not a movie of this caliber. The film's dynamic of characters in this movie does seem good on paper. It's essentially 2 friends who are pilots who want to stop Godzilla and help everyone. The problem is, they're fucking useless. Searchy is a pilot who just does pilot things throughout the movie. He likes to tell you that he's a pilot and he has a girlfriend. Apart from that, once again, stock protagonist, nothing useful about them. They are just there to move the plot along, and so there's a human character to go up against Godzilla. Koji is his friend. He's a little bit better, he's a bit more of a comic relief character, and I'll admit, there's a couple of parts which did make me giggle a little bit with his character, but apart from that, he's extremely irritating. Everyone has that one friend who makes you laugh like once a week, but for those other 6 days, you're just ready to punch them in the face. I know, because I am that friend. That is what Koji is. He's that friend. The third sort of character is Hidemi. That's the love interest of this film. She really doesn't do anything. Like, if you thought that Emiko from the original film was a little bit bland, she has nothing on this character. There is nothing to her. She's there literally to pad the runtime and to try and give some of the characters more character development, but falls flat on both those accounts. As stated earlier, the Dr. Mayer character from the original film comes back to Dr. Yamane. He's pretty good for that bit, but once again he's just dubbed down as a character just to give out exposition about Godzilla. The committee is the same thing. They do nothing important. They're literally there just to pad the runtime, so it's not 80 minutes of Godzilla and Anguirus punching each other. It serves no other reason. This film could very easily be a 30-minute short, rather than like a 70 to 80-minute movie. It has no relevance. Despite the fact that next year Ishiro Honda would show how much better he's become as a filmmaker, this film is not actually directed by him, and my god, you can tell. The shots in this are terrible, like there's weird zoomed in close-ups of Anguirus and Godzilla. I'm guessing it's for budgetary stuff for suits, but it looks really dirt cheap and bad. It's very off-putting. There's no big Godzilla moment in this film like in the original. There's no Godzilla coming up the mountain, there's no Godzilla coming out of the sea, but I say that, both those scenes actually do happen in this film. The first one has Godzilla coming out from over the mountain, except the mountain is blocking your fucking view, so you can't even see him that well. The second one is Godzilla coming out of the ocean, which once again is bogged down because you can't see him. This cinematography and the lighting ruins it. The lighting is that dark, you can hardly even tell that there's actually something there and it's not just a weird shape in the water. There isn't really much else to say. This film is lazy and rushed, and you can tell that with its directing and cinematography. There's nothing good here. It's bog standard, take a picture of this, take a shot of this, we're done for the day. It's very, very lazy, and I'm very appalled by it. This is when Raids Again starts to show itself as an actual film instead of just a rushed piece of marketing. A lot of the miniatures are to the same standard and quality as the original film because the special effects director did return, and it's pretty good. The miniatures are great, but one of the biggest problems of this film is there's only one real scene of destruction. And because of that, you don't really get the full effect of how good these sets can be, although we do get the brand new Ishiro Island, which is a very nice setting and it does look quite different from Otto Island. The only problem is it's only on screen for 5 minutes, apart from the very end, where it's just lots of ice. Because of this, the film does look noticeably very cheaper. I don't actually know this film's budget because I can't find it anywhere online, even on Wikizilla, but it looks cheap, it feels cheap, and you can tell there's been a massive downgrade to get this film out as soon as possible. The special effects, however, are not dirt cheap and look bad. Godzilla and Anguirus smashing up bits of a city, top notch, can't complain. The only real issue with this movie for its special effects is, to be honest, the entire last 30 minutes. After the city destruction scene, it just goes back to that island, and it doesn't look good. The planes, when they're in the air, look dirt cheap and horrible. Some of the explosions are out of time when one of the planes hits into a rock formation. The part where Godzilla gets buried in ice literally looks like a bunch of people just pushing fabric on top of the suit. It's awful and very shameful, especially after such an amazing sequence. But because of the film's budget being a lot lower, apparently, I can't really overly complain against that. And just the actual city destruction scene itself at the harbour is so good, you can forgive some of the later moments. One thing I can't forgive though is Masaru Suto's awful score. There's nothing good about this. It's the most generic pile of shit ever. There's an emotional moment, let's have high-pitched violins. There's a depressing moment, we'll have very low-pitched cellos. There's nothing good. It's the most generic score ever, which makes it look even worse when it comes directly after the amazing score we had in the original. There's no big bombastic song like there is with Godzilla's theme. Instead, we just get Americanized, boring pieces of music, which really doesn't do anything for the film and massively bogs it down. Now, if we have a think back to the last video, what was one of my biggest issues with it? Sound effects. Does this film improve on it? No, it makes them 10 times worse. I'll admit a lot of these issues are because I'm watching the Americanized version, but they're so bad Sounds literally cut out at several points when they're halfway through a sound effect. There's an explosion at one point, the explosion literally stops halfway through, so there's no echo at the end, and it sounds as stock footage as possible. I've genuinely seen better sound effects come from student films at my uni, and if you ask anyone, sound effects are some of the most difficult things to do without making them sound cheap. But then we reach the biggest problem, Godzilla's roar. For some reason, throughout the American version of this film, they use Anguirus's roar about 50 times when Godzilla's on screen. It's meant to represent a new sound of Godzilla to try and set him apart from the original Godzilla 2 Gigantus. It doesn't work, especially for fans who've seen the later films like I had, knowing what Anguirus's sound like, knowing what Godzilla's sounds like. It's bad, it's awful, and it's generally the entire movie non-stop. It doesn't end. You'd think it ends after a couple of times, but no, it comes back and back, and every time it gets more grating and really just take away a lot of my patience with this film, as you can probably tell from that little rant there. Finally though, we do reach Godzilla Raids Again's best strength. Godzilla in this film, despite what a lot of other people say, I think looks amazing. By slimming down the suit, it does make it feel like it's a brand new kaiju. Obviously that was kind of the intention because the original Godzilla died, this is another member of its family, but it does come across like that because of a lot of the design changes, but also keeping a lot of the similarities, so it makes it seem like they could actually be from the same species. Anguirus is also a brilliant design. I know it's quite generic because it's just based on an actual dinosaur, but it looks good. The special effects throughout this look awesome. Anguirus is probably one of my favourite Godzilla villains / allies, and I was very excited when I found out that he had a little skeleton corpse in King of the Monsters. But come on, Legendary, please bring him into more modern day Godzilla movies. The last time he appeared on screen was in 2004. That's not okay. I want some more Anguirus because I absolutely love this character. I love his design, the voice that he has, for the sound effects, and just overall, I love this character, and I can't say anything negative against the kaijus in this film. They're cool, and seeing them on screen for the first time, especially compared to what the characters will be like later on down the line, it's amazing. Finally is the film's fight scenes. This is probably one of the most controversial things with the film. I know a lot of fans especially debate upon this issue. Personally, I'm quite mixed. I know 50% of people love it and 50% hate it. Well, I'm that 0.01% that doesn't even get a full number, which thinks it's just okay. To be honest, just saying it's okay isn't really fair. The original fight on the island, where most of it's covered up by the rock formations, it's appalling. There's nothing I can say positive towards that. I have no idea why it was shot that way or choreographed that way, but it just looks bad, fake and cheap. One thing I will not accept a lot of people saying is that the fight with Godzilla and Anguirus at the harbour is bad. It is the most amazing 1950s shitty cheese I've ever seen in my life. There's parts where it's obviously slowed down, there's parts where it's obviously sped up, there's bits where the suit actors don't even touch each other and then go flying. Anguirus literally has this weird sonic blast thing which partly destroys a building. Godzilla fucking obliterates his first ever rival, later best friend. It's just so much cheesy fun, the kind of stuff that I'd watch a terrible sci-fi movie for and really enjoy. So I honestly can't see the issue with the main fight scene. I know it's not good, but my god is it a hell of a lot of fun. And that's how I kind of look at a lot of the fight scenes throughout this franchise. In total though, I'd say the film is a massive disappointment. Not just for me personally, but for the entire franchise. This is Godzilla's first sequel. A franchise famous for sequels and reboots, and this is the best effort they could do. Obviously it was rushed, 6 months production is not enough for any kind of film. I don't care what you're making. Making it in less than a year really can damage it, especially with something that needs so much care and attention as a kaiju movie. There's no good plot, there's no interesting characters, the themes are so bogged down compared to what they are in the original. There's not much to love, the music especially and sound effects. appallingly bad. But the film is also elevated for, number one, being the first ever Godzilla versus film, and the fights, the special effects are still pretty good, and the overall monster design and introducing Anguirus to the franchise, it really does help the film out a lot. I think that's the reason why I can't bring myself to hate this movie, because without it we wouldn't have the amazing franchise we have today. This shirt wouldn't exist, and it's hilarious as fuck. So because of that, I'm going to give Godzilla Raids Again a 3.25 out of 10. Still very low because it does deserve it, but this film caused so much, I can't bring myself to overly hate it. So on Tuesday, we're not actually going to be watching a proper Godzilla movie. Instead, we'll be looking at the 1956 movie Rodan, which brings back Ishiro Honda, Ikaro Ifube, and basically everyone who made Godzilla. Rodan's a weird movie, it's probably the most horror-related movie of the entire shower period, but I do enjoy it, especially because of some of the intro sequences. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this, please be sure to like, share and subscribe. If you click up here, then it'll be a playlist of all of my Godzilla movie reviews I've got at the time. And obviously if you head down here, it'll be all my old Jackson review stuff for you to all enjoy and laugh at my horrible pain and misery. But until then, have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye!